Thanks so much for joining me. I'm really excited to talk more about your music and your upcoming EP, which is released in 2 weeks. So how does it feel leading up to that?
Honestly, it honestly doesn't feel like it's even real that it's coming out in 2 weeks yet, especially because I wrote this in lockdown. So for it to actually be coming out and coming to fruition is really cool.
Yeah. How did you find like writing in lockdown? Did you find more inspiration having to be locked inside, or was it quite harder to find that motivation?
Honestly, I thought it would be harder, but it was actually easier for me, I think, because I did a lot of journaling. Lockdown is when I actually got into journaling and really gave it a go, and it helped me a lot in terms of just self-discovery and self-reflection, which I think then funneled back into the music for me. And I write all my stuff pretty much by myself anyways, so for me I could still do what I needed to do from my room. And yeah, most of the project was just naturally written in this room.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds good that you were able to use that time to be productive because I know like obviously live music wasn't happening, but you're still able to work towards your musical career, which is
Yeah,
great.
exactly. Yeah.
And I love the EP name, Diamonds and Dejavu. So can you tell me more about that and how that represents this piece of work?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, I when I was recording the demos, for some reason, before there were even lyrics, I kept saying diamonds in it would just come out when I would freestyle. So I held on to that, and obviously one of the singles is called Diamond in the Rough. And I was just like, there's something about diamonds that's really resonating with me in this project. And when I like thought about it a bit more, for me, diamonds are made under pressure. And I felt like this project was me coming, a lot of these songs were when I was coming to a crossroads of, I felt this, I've been in this scenario before, I felt this feeling before, but I chose a different direction from what I have in the past. And that's why the deja vu part came into play for me, because it was like, I've been here before, but I'm acting different and I feel different towards this situation. So for me, that's what the diamonds and deja vu thing is, because like for me, diamonds represent, power and strength, but like they're translucent, you can see through them, light goes through them, they've got so many faces, and like I have so many sides, so that's where that kind of came from for me.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
contrast. I feel like it's good. I feel like that name is just like catchy and represents the work as its whole. So in saying that, like what do you hope people will take away when they listen to this piece of work?
This project for me, this EP, was really me tapping into who I am, at least at this point, and in the evolution of me, you know what I mean? Because we're all forever changing. So I hope that people listen to this project and feel like they can tap into different sides of themselves and be empowered by different sides of themselves, whether that's like sexuality, whether that's, how you choose to present yourself, being vulnerable, being powerful, like these contrasted emotions and feelings, like being open to those things and letting them be that your strength rather than like an insecurity.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And when you say like tap into who you are, for those who like are coming across your music and they don't know who you are, how would you describe who you are and what your music's about?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I think that like I would describe it as in terms of sonically or lyrically.
Up to you. Like, someone just say someone's come across this EP, they don't know who you are, they haven't heard your music before. How would you describe yourself to someone who doesn't know who you are or your
Yeah.
music?
Musically, I feel like it's very much influenced by like early 2000s R&B, but futuristic. That's always been my approach because I love that kind of music. But then also lyrically, I think, you know, I even with my bisexuality in one song like Meantime, I'm talking about a girl and a guy. So it's like you're getting. I feel like that will sometimes confuse the listener, but also make them their ears kind of perk up as well, which I love.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I love that because as you said, they've been having confusion. It makes them really like listen to your lyrics as well and enjoy the
Yeah.
lyrics that they are, not just like the sound of the song
Yeah,
and the.
literally. I've had people in the past like Diamond in the Rough, like people are like, "Oh wait, did she like say that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I said."
And that's what you want people to do. You want them to actually listen to the lyrics too and
Yeah,
enjoy it, not just the song, but also what you're trying to say in your work.
exactly. Even like what you want, that's it's a dancey record. It's an empowering record, but I've seen like people comment on YouTube as well, like saying like low key these lyrics are actually super empowering and have intention. And I'm like, yeah, like you can still dance to it, but if you really listen to it, I'm really saying some things.
Yeah, and that must feel great that people are saying that because that's a huge compliment to your songwriting abilities that people
Yeah,
aren't
no, I
recognizing.
appreciate that. It is, because that's for me, you know, I love having those club records and those upbeat records that people can move to. But, you know, for me, there's always something underlying that, you know, there's a bit of a more intentional lyrical context behind it.
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting you say that because one of my favorites is You 3000. That's about your sexuality as well. And I was wondering, like, what's your experience been as a queer artist growing up?
Yeah. I mean, this project, this EP is the first time that I'm really being open about it. In the past, in the mixtape, I actually did have records on that project that I was talking about a female, for example, but I didn't use pronouns. People just
Yeah.
assumed, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this is the first time that I've actually like gone in and used pronouns as well for myself more than anyone else, just so I could feel like I'm being authentic to myself. And I think, you know, only now am I stepping into like being a queer artist, because that's not what was happening in my last mixtape. So I don't actually know yet what it's been like, but in terms of growing up as like, you know, a queer creative, um I guess closeted, it
Yeah.
was super interesting when I started going into writing sessions, because I didn't know how open I wanted to be when I was writing with other people. And I think low-key that might be a reason why I wrote everything by myself, and still kind of do, because I had that kind of like guard up in terms of how open I could be. But when I worked on this project, I collaborated mainly with Hugh Lake, who executively like produced this project, and I don't think I've had a close relationship with anyone I've worked with in the past. And I think that's why this project was able to be the way it was, because of that relationship too.
Yeah, I think that's great because it can also encourage like other queer artists that might also be doing like writing songs about same sex but not being able to use the pronouns, and then like, you know, doing what you're doing later on, being able to use the pronouns
Yeah.
that work for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I guess, like, how did you know when you were personally ready to start making that change in your music?
Yeah, it was not a you know, an executive decision or anything like that. Head to Toe was the first record on this EP that I wrote, and I remember hesitating because the first line of that song is, you know, the vibes, I can give you girl butterflies. Like, I was like, am I going to say that, or am I going to change that line? And when I decided, no, that's what I'm going to say, then I obviously knew where the song was going to go. Like, it's either I do it all, like I say it, or I just play it safe again. Same thing with
Yeah.
Diamond in the Rough. Like, there were things where I was like, will I say the pronoun? Do I say something that's like, could be like more gender neutral, or doesn't necessarily, you know what I mean? Like I thought about those things, and then I was like, well, no, like I'm just gonna say what I need to say.
Yeah, and I guess that's
And
what makes it
yeah,
more special too, when it's true to who you are. Yeah.
exactly. So for me, I guess once I did Head to Toe, I was like, well, this has opened the gates. Like, you know what, for me as a writer, like, okay, if I'm gonna say this, then I can go further on the next record, and then the next one I can, you know. So Year 3000, that happened, I think, really in the middle of lockdown, like right smack bang in the middle. And I had been doing, yeah, a lot of journaling and self-discovery and just self-reflection, and I didn't realize how much like insecurity I still had around my sexuality, I guess. So that song was like a big thing for me to write, and I think I probably wouldn't have written it if I wasn't in lockdown and like had that isolation to write it myself.
Yeah, well, I just want to congratulate you on that because that's a huge scene. So it's great that you've been able to discover that and feel comfortable in
Thank
yourself.
you.
Be like, I'm going to be true to who I am and let other people, especially on such a public platform as well.
Yeah, like I felt like for me that song, like I had been waiting 5 years to write that song. That's how it felt like. Once I got it out, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and how does it feel now, like reflecting on that and be like, you know, I did it. I'm being true to what I'm doing.
It's honestly insane. I think, you know, 15-year-old me looking up to artists such as like Kaylani, and at the time she identified as bi, and she was the only artist back then that I ever knew, female artists, especially in R&B, that were just publicly like loud about their queerness. So,
Yeah.
and I always thought, well, like I can't imagine doing that, even though I knew who I was. So, like to be at that point now is, yeah, it's surreal.
Yeah, that's huge. Well done on that and for
Thank
making
you.
that step. And I guess like going back to like year 3000, it's about like a year like free from all the politics that come around it. So what does year 3000 look like to you in your ideal world?
I love that. I mean, Year 3000 in context of this song, it's, you know, a time where there is no, the love is valid. That's the first thing for me. And there's a lyric in the bridge. What was it? In 1,000 years, your face will be beauty without pain. For me, that's about me, but that's also about potentially that significant other. It's like there's so much hidden pain behind queerness. Like I think it's great now that we can be empowered by it, but there's always that underlying there's that hardship, and I hope that in 1,000 years people won't have to carry that same weight.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope for.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I guess that context makes it even more special that it's going to be released on the same time as Sydney World Pride. So how are you going to be celebrating? Are you going to that's like the perfect anthem to get up and dance for at Pride?
Yeah, literally. That week, this interview is going to be released around then, right? So I can say, because that week I'm going to be doing song hubs with Troye Sivan. I got selected for that Pride songwriting week, so that's what I'm going to be doing that whole week.
Huge, well done. Yeah.
So that'll be really cool to be around, all LGBTQIA plus creatives, because I've never been in that setting, to be honest, especially in R&B, hip hop. I guess for the most part, most of the producers I've worked with are straight males. So it'll be really cool to just be around queer creatives that week.
Yeah, I love that. It's good to connect with other people who get who you are as an artist as well and have that same experience.
Exactly, and obviously Troye has done exactly that and
that way. Exactly. And he's been such a role model for queer artists coming out.
So it'd be really cool to have that week then.
Yeah, well done. That sounds like it's going to be a really exciting celebration for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And tell me more about because going on tour and that. So you've just come back from supporting some really incredible artists on sold out tours. How was that experience like for you?
They were definitely my highlights of last year. For me, performing is my favorite part of being an artist, and really getting to bring the music to life and have that energy exchange with the audience. That's my favorite part. So the Blast tour was so fulfilling for me. I love his music. I have for years, so it was amazing to see him do his thing, but also obviously be able to go to places like Auckland and tap in to crowds that I haven't got to perform for in the past. And yeah, it's my favorite part of all of this, so I loved it.
Yeah, and I guess from having that experience of supporting these incredible artists, what sort of tips did you take away that you'll implement into your own tour when you go out and perform as you?
As in from these artists or from the tour in general?
Just from the experience in general, performing for sold out crowds, seeing how other artists work here.
Yeah. I mean, both Blast, Stroll Corey, Baker Boy, all of them have, insane work ethic, and there's a certain way that they move on tour. It was cool to watch artists of that caliber and on that level and see how they handle these tours, obviously, because I haven't toured on that kind of level. So that was really cool for me to see how they move. But in terms of just the general experience of tour and performing for sold out crowds, I think what I'll take away and what I've learned is really, I feel I come to life when I'm on stage. So I just want to be able to give as much of myself to these audiences and just be as open as I can be on stage. So honestly, that's what I learned the most, is just being as authentic as I can on stage, and how I feel. I don't want to hold that back on stage. Yeah.
I love that, because I feel that's how people are going to relate to your music and how you're going to connect with the audience when you do these performances.
Definitely.
Yeah. So are you going to do any performances for this EP, or how can people come out and support you if they like this release?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a tour later in the year. I don't even know if I'm meant to be saying that. I'm actually not sure, but I'm going to be touring it for the EP. At the moment, live-wise, that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. What are you most looking forward to about performing these particular songs from this EP?
I haven't performed Year 3000 yet, and I think that's going to be so fulfilling to be able to sing that one live, and for people to sing. Once I'm in an audience where they know the lyrics for Year 3000, I think that's going to be a really special moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And with this EP, so 3 of the songs from the EP have been previously released as singles. So why do you feel those particular songs were the perfect preview of what's to come from the bigger picture?
Yeah, I mean, Head to Toe, I thought was the perfect introduction for me, just because it was about that record was about previous insecurities that I'm now empowered by. So I felt that was a perfect introduction, and it was showing different sides of me. And then you know, then you've got something like What You Want, where I'm talking about how women are always put in this box for the male gaze. I felt like they just had very distinct kind of opinions. They kind of really set the tone of where I'm at, and that's what I felt like I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And I feel like as well, people are picking up on that because you've got some really good TikTok success with like the music you've been sharing there and stuff. And I guess tell me more about that and how it feels knowing that like people are listening to your music and understanding you.
Yeah, even with TikTok, it's crazy because I love that the things that are doing well on TikTok are like me performing head to toe on tour. Like it's something that's organic to me. It's me on stage, and then that's what's doing well on TikTok, which is really cool because I feel like obviously with the whole TikTok virality and songs on TikTok, like you can get into that headspace of let me make music for TikTok and what's going to work for TikTok. So I think for me, it's really cool that music that I'm just making for myself and that I love and the way that I like to show it is doing well on that kind of platform. And, you know, hopefully Year 3000 also resonates with people on that platform too.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear like more about your process too, because it's interesting that you just said like getting out of that headspace of trying to make music for TikTok. Do you find that you specifically try to make stuff for TikTok, or you try to make one thing that's universal across everything?
Yeah, no, I never go in, like, I've never gone into a session and been like, yeah. But I think that, you know, it is like easy, like, it is easy to get trapped into that world of like, you know, what is going to work for the masses, what is going to work for that 15 seconds that goes viral on TikTok. Of course, like those kinds of thoughts can pop into our head, but for me, like the reason I love this is because of the self-expression. Like it can't be anything else for me. Like that's it. And also the other aspect for me with the music that I make is always thinking about how it will translate live for me. So that influences me more than yeah.
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 When you, that's interesting too, because like when you say like translates live, has there ever been a time where you've written a song and you're like, this is gonna sound so great, and then it hasn't translated as well live?
I've had opposite of like songs that I thought I didn't think were like gonna be live tracks, but then when I do them live, everyone's hype on it. Like Said and Done from my last mixtape, I usually open up most of my sets with that, and it always gets the crowd going. And I just didn't think that that was gonna be one of the songs that would be doing that for some reason. When I wrote it, I just didn't think of it. I thought it was a bit more chill, but it
Yeah.
translates well live. In terms of something that hasn't, I mean, I hope not. I don't think there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that because I guess like what you're saying there is that like people obviously have different tastes, and what you think might not do as well, people are obviously resonating with, and that's
Yeah.
because everyone's got their own interpretation of
I
what they like.
guess one thing is like when the lights go out, obviously for me that I think that's been one of my more successful records, and that for me it's obviously more of a ballad. It's a slower tempo track, so that was kind of a surprise too. And just because like a lot of my music is more dancey and like more danceable, so it was cool to see that that record resonated with me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of like live music, I love your sound because there's a lot of different genres at the moment, but I love that that old school R&B is coming back, and that's what I love about this particular EP. So tell me more about like that sound and how that resonates to you.
I am super influenced by old school artists as a performer and then also as an artist. So like Janet Jackson, Ciara, even like on the pop tip, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera definitely influenced me in terms of like the visual side of things as well with music videos and shoots. So they, you know, old school R&B has always been such a big influence on me, and it even in dance as a dancer, I was always dancing to that music. So I feel like it's just in my blood.
Yeah, and that's how I felt about too, because I used to dance as well growing up. So when you know, in the 2000s, all those big R&B hit songs at the time. So when I listened to this EP, I was like, I felt like I was going back to that time.
I
Like
love
love
that.
making
Yeah,
a comeback. Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I guess like lastly, what I love about from what I've learned from you today is how comfortable you feel like being yourself, and not really caring what people think, just being true to yourself no matter how people see it. So what advice do you have for other artists who may not have that confidence in themselves to come out and be themselves in their music?
I feel like first and foremost is just to be gentle with yourself. Like for me, it was such a process. I didn't force myself to get to this point. I think with the more writing that I did and the more self-reflection, like behind closed doors, that I did is how I got to this point. So in terms of advice, it's like, I think just really getting to know yourself and your boundaries, and then just trying to, you know, take those steps with the writing, and, you know, just being gentle with yourself throughout that process, because I think there's no other way. Like, it's just gonna have to happen naturally, and if you're being hard on yourself about it, it just won't happen. And I think it just needs to happen naturally so that it feels good. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, when the more you hold yourself back from saying your truth, the more resistance there is. Because for me, when I was like holding back from saying things in the past, it made me feel a bit tense. You know, like, I'm still saying my truth, but just not the whole way. That's how I felt. Like, I was saying what I need to say, but just not the whole way. So I think the more tense and like anxious it makes you, the more you need to do it. So it just happens naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the more, as you said, the more you do it, the more people
Exactly.
are
Like
going
anything.
to come
Yeah.
natural. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I feel like that's really good advice for anyone that wants to try and do that as well in their own career. Yeah. And was there any other like things that you wanted to add that I haven't covered today, or things that you want people to know about this particular release or yourself?
Not necessarily. I think we covered quite a bit. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited for you, and I hope to see one of your shows sometime soon because
Yes.
it's done great. Yeah.
100%. You have to come one time.
Yes. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time
Thank you for your
today.
time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.